Hey Dosers, thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Tracy. I'm from the San Marcos Escondido campus, and we are continuing in our series, 40 Days to Freedom. And today we're going to unpack a story that you see in the Gospels, written several times actually. And it's where Jesus was finishing teaching, and he and the disciples get in the boat, they're going on the sea, and this crazy storm breaks out, and waves are coming in, and water's coming in. And I bet as I even say that, some of you are like, oh, yeah, I'm in a storm right now. And if we're not right now, we know that life, it just hands us storms sometimes. We're going to go through seasons of them. And as they were in the boat, the storm was happening, the water's coming in, they literally thought they were going to drown. And they look over and it says that Jesus is asleep on a pillow. And they go over to him and they say, "Teacher, don't you care that we're going to die?" And I can just picture Jesus like getting up off the pillow, walking to the front of the boat and saying, "Peace." And it says immediately the winds calmed down. And then it says, after that, it says, then they were exceedingly fearful. And when we take it out into context and we look at what those two words were actually meaning in the Greek form, it helps us out a lot in how to really look at this passage. The first one, where they were fearful and they were waking Jesus up, it meant they were fearful. They were actually afraid. They were terrified they were going to die. When it goes back to exceedingly fearful afterwards, after Jesus says, "Where was your faith?" it meant that they were in awe. Like they all of a sudden realized, like, oh, wow, this is Yahweh. This is God himself. This is the God of the Old Testament that we have heard time and time again, that God has met his people where they are, that he has parted the sea. He has told the ocean where to stop and where to start. He is over all creation. And they had this realization, this awe of like, oh, now we know who we're in the boat with, actually. And I believe that Jesus's maybe irritation or disappointment perhaps was when he looked at him and said, "Where's your faith?" They had enough faith to wake him up that he could do something. They've been watching all these miracles, but it was in what they said. They said, "Don't you care?" And Jesus is like, "Really?" And that fear, it's like, do you not understand? Do you not remember who God is and his character, his faithfulness, his kindness, his love for us? And he's gone to such great lengths to save his kids. Do you not remember who that God is? And so they went from teacher to being in awe of Yahweh. And I believe when we look at our own lives, whether we're in a storm now or not, it's like, what lens do we put on? Because if we put on the lens of looking at everything around us, our circumstances, the chaos, the world that we're in, or the storm that we're in, we can become absolutely paralyzed. Anxiety, fear, physically we have issues because we're looking at what's around us. And this passage is saying, no, shift the lens. Shift the lens to Yahweh, to who he is and to his faithfulness, because it's then that we find freedom. Regardless of what our circumstances are, we find freedom, we find peace that doesn't make any sense. We find joy, we find contentment, we find our health is even better. We're feeling better when we have our mind in the right place. In Isaiah, it says to us that you will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are stayed on you because they trust in you. So I just want to encourage us today. It doesn't matter what our circumstances are, what kind of storm we might be in or we might be getting ready to head into. Let's put on the lens of who he is. Let's stop being in awe and claiming and taking on what's going on around us, the storm. Let's stop being in awe of the storm and let's start being in awe of who he is. I promise you there's freedom in that every time. We'll see you next time.